We are live. We are live. I think we are live. Let's see how this thing goes. We are live. We are live. Okay. I guess I got it okay now. Sounds okay and everything. So, hello, MGTOWs. Go your own. Let's do it the right way. Go your own way. Go your own way. Everything I see is backwards to the screen, so I have to do my left hand. And I always forget that. Go your own way, MGTOW. Do your own thing, and all your sins are forgiven from the past. And today we're gonna talk a little bit about denialism. Denialism, something a little different than most people perceive it as. A lot of people come in and they talk about denialism in the form of skepticism. Skepticism is not denialism. Skepticism, when you do skepticism, you're taking on a philosophy, Descartes' philosophy, or Kierkegaard basically's philosophy of same thing as existentialism or nihilism. You remove everything from the table. All these people have different ways of looking at it, but there's really one way of looking at it. You can group them together and kind of go over, and there's a little different paths. Like MGTOW's got a lot of different paths. Skepticism is just being skeptical of what you hear, and it's not a bad thing, but it's not denialism. Denialism is different. Denialism is not a good thing, like I put in the low bar here. Let me read it off. Hello, Mr. Jones. I'm just kind of going on right. Denialism is essentially an irrational action. It withholds validation, historical experience, or events. When a person refuses to accept empirical, verified reality, we get that a lot around here in MGTOW. MGTOW's been going on now quite a few years, and we have a pretty solid philosophy behind it and everything, and but we're constantly inundated with people that are asking questions about MGTOW, and that's how this thing's going to unwind a little bit. You're going to run upon a video that's MGTOW, why do you guys rap blah 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 but, and it should be spelled B-U-T-T, because that's what they really want. They're not saying but, they're saying they want but. And they'll go to extremes, and denialism becomes a tool in which they use against MGTOW. You can say anything you want to say, but they're not going to believe it. Denialism rejects basic facts, that's concepts, MGTOW concepts. We hear a lot of MGTOW, you're right about this or you're right about that, but, and then there's a big either enter Nawalt or I know a girl, which is Nawalt. That's, I know a lot of women in my life, and it's not about that. Nawalt is simply the all women are like that because all women have the courts behind them, and all women have a gun in the room, and they can pull that trigger anytime they want. And that's the hard part about explaining these things. We explain it, and then there's this automatic impulse to deny it. No, that really doesn't happen, and it could be a common perspective of just no experience in life, and we seem to get that a lot. We get a lot of young kids that when presented with this unfavorable truth or this unwelcome truth, or they reject the overwhelming evidence of it, and it usually happens, they have a little political controversy with it, or they just don't want to see it, and they're here just to argue, and that's a defense mechanism. We look at defense mechanisms as protect the psyche against, that sort of stuff. There's a mental disturbance in that and everything. There's a lot of denialism that goes around in this world. We see it. We've seen it a number of times over history and play out in science. In the AIDS epidemic, the pandemic, and we see it now with coronavirus deniers. We see that in the great examples probably in Korea, there's this massive Christian cult there that just was going to go out and get it and prove to everybody that either Jesus was coming or they're just going to deny that it's nothing more than a common cold. But we've seen it play out in late 1990s, 2000s, early 2000s with HIV deniers, and there's still AIDS pandemic deniers in Africa. They'll deny that even though there's overwhelming evidence, and they'll employ certain rhetorical schemes. They're going to employ distortions, half-truths, misrepresentations, and stuff like that. They're going to shift the premise of logic. They're going to do a lot of things to just, when you look at it that way, how they went through these things and how they did them. It took years and years, and we still have AIDS denial. We have a good example: Holocaust deniers. There was no Holocaust because there was a greater Holocaust somewhere else, or there's just, this didn't really happen. This horror didn't happen, even though we have pictures of bodies stacked, and we see and hear the evidence. They're gonna go through these rhetorical tactics to argument the legitimate data that's out there, and they do that with mgtow. I say all of my premises and mgtow, all of my my observations and all of my things. I always put together 3 accounts of science: biological science, and I'll take logistical science, or I'll take political sciences, or I'll take one of the several philosophies, means of philosophy. As long as I can put 3 of them together, I'm pretty confident that it'll work out to a empirical scheme, and then I can articulate it better. And but when we get to denialist and mgtow, they're going to use pretty much 5 tactics. There's to present it as a legitimate controversy. And the first thing they're going to do is mgtow is extreme. When they're saying mgtow is extreme, they're going to do the rage theory. mgtow is extreme in rage. I just ran on an example of mgtow is extreme in that rage. The young man was asking about he was asking about, I seen the mgtow misfit over there. The young man I was talking about, the blonde haired guy. He was like, give me some, but mgtow, there seems to be these groups in mgtow that say things too strong. And then he came back with the Nawalt argument. And then there was the political. Some people think it's political, and it is partially, mgtow is partially political, because we have to go to courts. The courts will, the courts are what's run this. The court is the thugs behind the feminists, and they force men into these traditional roles, which we really don't want to be in anymore. And they'll even deny when confronted with unfriendly truths about feminism and unfriendly truths about even fatherhood and stuff like that, biological facts and stuff, they'll deny it. And that's what we're run up against. So how do you do this? How do you run up against? So how do you do that? You have to. That's why I'm just clicking and getting it forward. How do you go about combating this sort of denialism? We get it from our government. We get it from women. Women want to project their schemes since when women's liberation came around. It's moved from women's liberation into a different paradigm, and this paradigm in the postmodern world comes out. To me, it looks a lot like polyandry, and we already settled polyandry and or polygamy, and polyandry is for women, polygamy is for men, and we already settled polyandry and polygamy in the wars that we've had. The Civil War is two in the wars. 2 tenets of the Civil War is, that was weird. 2 tenets of barbarism. and one was about slavery. And we said slavery wasn't going to be okay. But today you can pretty much make a man a slave to traditionalism, to continue the roles of traditionalism, to assist females in their birthing processes and stuff with gifts and money, your money. And that's called slavery. When you work for someone and the pay goes somewhere else and given to somebody else, that's slavery. So we've worked through these things, but over the years, feminism has resembles this strange polyandry. Women move from one man to the next, up to 4 or 5 times. You'll see the general baby mama factory with maybe 2, 3 women living in a house with several kids that don't quite look alike, and they're moving from man to man to man, and they know the civil system very good. They know Health and Human Services very good. They'll get pregnant by one man, run them through HHS, get pregnant by another man, run him through, and that's 5 or 6 incomes. For each time you run a man through it, that's like a third of an income, and he has a child there, and then you have 2 or 3 of these baby mamas living in these houses, and that seems to be how it works out. It's a male-free area is what we call it. We have the male-free areas developing, and we have large buildings now, male-free areas with hundreds of kids and hundreds of females in there. And there's thousands of men on the outside that are subjected to this system, and they're taking money from each one of those men. And there's a strange polyandric system, which is polygamy, which is Mormonism, which is we legislated against that, and after post Civil War during the Reconstruction, we legislated against polygamy, and we legislated against that. But there's a strange system of baby mamas that the HHS and which Health and Human Services and the government pretty much knowing the fact that 42% of the babies that are to be born now are born out of wedlock, out of those traditional roles. So I'm not going to complain about that. That's why we pay taxes and we pay for the children and everything. What I'm going to complain about is the other side of that, where men can't opt out of those traditional roles, and or say, I want to have. I was arguing with this today, and in the abortion rights people with the abortion rights, and I was like, oh, go abortion rights people, and we had some activity in South Carolina and in the Supreme Court where they came to a deadlock today. But I say, hey, abortion's great, but I want men to have abortion too. I want men to be able to financially abort, because those things ruin men's lives. The same excuse that they've had for 20, 30, 40, almost 50 years here now for women, men have never had those options. They're forced by law, state, and thugs and police, all kinds of negative impact to their lifestyle, negative things will happen. They'll be put in jail. They will have their money taken. They will have their license taken. They'll have their job taken. They will be ostracized from society and even made homeless if you don't take on them traditional roles of that's barbarism. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the tenets of barbarism in our society, and we've just redid it. So when we look at this stuff and we start talking about this stuff, I was getting down to the point of denialism is what I was saying. We have a whole section of our society that's in this denialistic mode. They think they're being skeptics or something. I'm not sure what they take on the role of skepticism when they come at us. They usually use conspiracy theories. That's dismissing the data or observation by suggesting there's opponents that are involved in a conspiracy to suppress the truth about Jesus or something. You see Trump do it a lot. There's always a conspiracy. It's always Hillary. It's always, Joe Biden's son or something. It's a deflection is what it is. And it's denying whatever truth is coming at them. And it's what I call a conservative, what in reality is called a conservative bias when confronted with with an unfriendly truth, you balk and go back to what you believed anyways, and you have to defend that somehow. So there's 5 different ways, said Chris Hoofnagel, and you can look this up on Wikipedia or somewhere. And cherry picking will be the sort of next thing they do. Is there's you all know what cherry picking is. Low picking the fruit, the worst flawed outlandish data that you can come up with. You present that as the truth. If there's one guy over here that did this, then you present that as the truth. There's one guy over there that was a rapist, that was a horrible person. So present that and use the low hanging fruit. Cherry picking and the low hanging fruit are the same thing. We get that a lot with feminism when they okay, well, there's these guys that do this, and then they build a whole conspiracy upon that, and then there's denialism, and then there's a whole thing that goes on with that, and I had it written down here somewhere. I just wanted to insert that real quickly. That there's a whole thing that goes on when there's questions of these political things and rage and everything, and there's reasons why mgtow seem to come out as forceful and hateful sometimes. It's because we have our voices suppressed, and there's how can you be a rebel without a voice? How can you say things without a voice? And you have to make it strong, but you have to in feminism, what they do is they do these outlandish, there's allegations, and there's twisted meanings, and there's improper statements, and it has a huge effect on what we do. And it's making this is not about making a substantial claim to this happens in society. These are tactics which are linguistical strategies from stealing the voice of men. And that's what we see when we are presented with these denialists, with these people that, there's no such thing. Men don't need rights because they've always been on top. That's still untrue. Since the women's liberation movement, we've been stuck in these protector provider roles, and women escape their roles. At least most women know that they don't have to tend to those roles that were traditional roles, but they still force these traditional roles onto men because they're very useful when you're extracting money out of men. When extracting utility out of men, we'll call it utility in mgtow, because that's what you're getting your utility extracted from you, and it's being placed with someone else. Most people know that as slavery. Or you become the disposable male, in which I said the barbaric terms which we live under the social contract the full weight will come down on you. And I laugh, but it's not funny because I've been there, and we've all felt those things where the full weight of society will come down on you. You'll be shamed, you'll be ostracized, you'll be kicked out, you'll be forced. There seems to be this force that is always present and always pressure on you, and once they run you through those things, you get a felony, you get this, you get your driver's license, you won't be able to work. They control all these systems, so it will become it's forced traditionalism. Get in line, be that protector provider, man up is what they're saying. We say in mgtow, don't man up, you man out. And I wanted to just stop and say hello to everybody. This show to Mr. Jones. Hello, Rob C. Glad to see you. Hello, mgtow Misfit. Communism for 2, wealth distribution. Yeah, all that stuff. It's all that stuff. And pretty much traditionalism in Jesus and all that stuff is the cause, because that's what was picked after I explain, after the Civil War. There was 2 competing religions, and one was Mormonism, and one was about polyandry, or polygamy and polyandry, and one was about Christianity and monogamy. And Christianity and monogamy won, but we have to live by those laws which we've taken on. So So post 1960, 1970, boom, feminism happens. There's a new thing. ERA comes around. Marriage is destroyed. Their no fault divorce comes around. Boom, these things are happening. They're happening quite fast. Boom, 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 boom. Feminism is coming into power, and busy little girls know how to do busy work and get grants, and they're starting this whole new thing, and they're moving away from their traditional system. And good power to them, because I'm not a traditional light. I am farthest thing from a conservative there is. I'm an old hippie, and I say they moved away, but it still becomes convenient for women to keep men in traditional roles so they can force the long arm of the law onto them. And that's where denialism comes in. If you start saying, hey, I want abortion rights as a male, they'll snicker and laugh. There's no such thing. It can't be possible. No, financially, I will be ruined if I have a child now. Financially and emotionally, it's not gonna. I have to start working. That's gonna be so horrible for my body if I have to start working 2 jobs so I can support a baby mama. A lot of men will go to their death working 2 jobs in the society, but it's overlooked. It's not. We're not looked at as humans. We're looked at as I can show you in the. I got the. What's it called? The pocket veto from 1929, where men what men are looked at as a group of workers. That's all men ever were, as a group of workers. But in that thing, I mean, that's where they place us. That's where they play. You will work for the system because your body can't afford you to work for the system for a long period of time as a meat machine. We all become meat machines to the society, and our society runs on it. Capitalism runs purely on meat machines. Now I know the. Now I know the. There's a lot of. Ooh, that was good. I needed that little lemon lime in my throat. I know feminism seems to be unappealing to most people and everything, but hey, as for me, I want the girls to have. I want the girls to have their rights. I want the girls to have the best jobs possible. I want the girls to have agency over their bodies so they can make good choices about having children and all that stuff, because it really is their child. It's not my child. They're having a child. I'm not. Nothing about this says I can push a baby through me. They're having a child. They're taking responsibility. It's a postmodern world we live in, and I want feminism to work because I want them to start taking responsibility for their actions. And in that, I get to not have to play the traditional role of father. But when I see these arguments all over mgtow, I see them, man, there's huge arguments all over mgtow, and it's a Misfit knows today, the young man that was asking questions about he says, but he went and then he balked, and then he wanted to go conservative bias to I just don't see how this works. He thinks that mgtow is just about working out, saving your saving your money, getting yourself into a good position where you can find in the wall. That is the furthest thing from mgtow there is. And it's funny how they'll do the denialism instead of skepticism. They'll say, well, I'm a skeptic. A skeptic in skepticism means that you've taken on a philosophy in your life to take all the stupid stuff out. You remove everything from the table. But in any philosophy, you have to start putting things back on that you find to be true. And if there's some truths in mgtow, and you can see empirically that it is a truth, and most of mgtow is empirically true, we back it up scientifically 3 ways, 4 ways, 5 ways. Most of the time, it's just an observational truth that you can find true. The courts are against men. They're biased. There's a slavery system. We need to get rid of it. We need to move on away from this Christian traditionalism because they so screwed up our world. But you're going to get Christian traditionalists that conservatively balk at that point, and then you're going to get liberals even on the other side that conservatively balk, which is just the funniest thing in the whole world when they do it. It's like when I say I want abortion rights for men, even the liberals will go, "Oh, what are you crazy? Abortion rights are just for women." Well, that's the very definition, just for women, is the very definition of gender bias, the second sexism, I call it. There's a second sexism that has to do with men and boys. We get put in these traditional roles, they get the benefits. We don't get none of the benefits. We get to work ourselves to death. That seems to be a second sexism there. Hey, guys, just go along with it. Don't argue with it. That's where the denialism comes in. Don't argue with it. Don't make these observations that life is quite unfair to men, that the courts are quite unfair to men, that there seems to be an unreasonable things that are asked of us. Our retirement should be after 20 years of work, not 50 years of work. There's certain things that happen in the society that are just absurd, and the whole process seems to be absurd. And the more farther you get into mgtow, the more you understand that the process, the absurdity that you're going to confront in the process is going to be astounding. It's going to be major astounding. And you're going to get to see that. That's what's known as the red pill. You observe the absurdity of living in that kind of situation, and the construct. And there's these constructs that are built for men, and we've relieved women of those duties, but we don't relieve men of those duties, of those traditional constructs, because, well, man, chaos. I don't know if it would cause chaos. I think it would be just do your mgtow thing and pay your taxes and forget about getting married. We can get rid of all those buildings that we have, all the Health and Human Service buildings, all those positions. There's like 2.2, there might be 3.4 million now. I haven't checked in a long time. Correct me if I'm wrong. People that work for these buildings. That's $1 trillion, dude. That's $1.2 trillion it costs to run these things. If we just removed all those, if the United States would get out of marriage and get out of the divorce system and get out of it, we can shut down all those buildings, move Health and Human Services into the library. You go in there, you type in your social security number, which you do have, your name, your mother's maiden name, which is the second check on that. And then you type in how much you actually make, and you say there's a little thing that comes up and says, if you're lying, you can go to jail about that. Then you hit that. And if you're making under a certain amount of money, you should make enough to survive. If you have 2 kids and you're making $16,000 and you have 2 kids, you obviously deserve something, and we're all paying that. But to automate the system would take nothing. There's denialism in that. There's, we can automate the system too, because they know their jobs. There's going to be like 3.4 million people, I think it is now, that would automatically be without jobs, and they'll have to move into the private sector and actually work for a living. If we did it that way, and then that would cost roughly, that would save us roughly about a trillion and a half dollars, and that's where your savings are. And if you look at feminism, that's where your savings are. You're going to save a lot of money not having to employ people in the government. And you reduce the size of your government, you reduce the arm of the law, which puts men in jail for not paying their supposed child support, to a woman that refuses to take agency for her own body. So there's a lot of denialism that's installed in that system. It's a Christian denialism. It's they'll bring on these false experts. This is what the law is, and the law tends to support the evidence as credible. That's a false expert. And there's the ever-moving goalpost that dismisses evidence and presents a a response in a specific claim by continually demanding some other falsifiable piece of unfalsifiable piece of evidence, like, well, I don't believe that, and I'll deny it. I don't believe that, and deny, and the goalposts ever expanding. There's logical fallacies that are used. There's false analogies that are used. Straw man's, red herrings, blah blah blah. Appeal to consequences. I've went over about 2 or 3 dozen of those in my videos. If you go back and listen to them, they're usually about some segment of this thing where a rhetorical tactic is being used in a legitimate debate or something like that. So we have these systems that are working against men, and there's a lot of denialism, and you're gonna get hit with this when you come into mgtow, and sometimes men don't know how to react to it. It's like, I can't believe this guy is just not. I can't believe he's just sitting there saying that he wants people. We've went over this. People want a fantasy fiction life. The fictional finalist, the fictional finalism goes in. They draw up these things in their heads, and they want that life to be true. They want that picket fence to be true. That White House with the big pillars in front of it, and a woman with a cherry pie. She's just happy to see you every day, and that's traditionalism. I mean, like, slap her on her butt and go do the dishes, baby. I'll see you in the bedroom. No, women don't want that. What woman in the world will want your ugly ass groping over her at night and using her as a penis pocket? Really? Come on, guys. It's not something they want. And I understand that, and traditionalism must be horrible for women, and we've gone through this evolution, this new paradigm. We'll call it a new paradigm, and the paradigm, the science of philosophy. After Kuhn and after Rawls and after those guys, and we're kind of rejecting that on the old books of Genesis and the creationalist myth. And I know that's a hard thing for guys to get over, that creationalist myth that some God's going to hold you responsible for not manning up. Man, I seen Joey gave me a picture. It said he's seen the wall. It was painted "man up" on the wall the other day. I said, your task, Joey, is to when you see that painted on a wall somewhere, your task is to go up and exit out and put "man out." I'm manning out mgtow. But there's a lot of conspiracies that I've seen it around here. I've seen some of the best mgtows get sucked into conspiracy theories, flat earth, yetis and lizard people and flat earthers and genetically modified foods, and AIDS is not real, and there's the governments, them chemtrails are just poison, and they're sterilizing us all, and the Holocaust didn't exist, and blah blah blah. There was no such thing as AIDS, and we all fall into this. Sometimes it's the idea of just getting away, just releasing, getting away, and reading about lizard people, and it's fun. It's fantasy fiction. You can believe in it for a little bit, but you come back to the truthiness of the world. And, you're a pseudo skeptimist, I guess. You just kind of flip back and forth on that. And it's fun to watch these things, but they're not really true. And some people get wrapped up in these untruths and these conspiracies. Once confronted with that rationalism, you must release it and say, "Hey, that's not true." But there's a lot of people that still deny mgtow, and it's like it gets also crazy sometimes. And I know we have new guys moving in all the time to mgtow, and they're always with that. Yeah, mgtow, you're kind of right, and I can see the logic a little bit, but, and like I said, that but's not spelled B-U-T, that but's spelled B-U-T-T, and that's what they want, that split V, and And that's what they'll lie, cheat, and steal. I was doing a recent study on dramatologicalism. Dramatologicalism we live in a world full of drama. All the world's a stage, and we do things that are in face value and behind the scenes value. We put on this image, and it totally explains. There's a link between polyandry and we hear it all the time that women wear a mask and then all of a sudden they take off that mask and they're not. Yeah, that's dramatology. That she wants you saying everything in that sociological thing that we do where we're accepted and we don't want to be ostracized and we don't want people to hate us. There's a great example of meeting her parents. I got tattoos. So I put a jacket on, I put a thing, and I'm playing a role at that point. We play a lot of roles in this world. We play roles at work. We play roles with exes. We play roles with the government. We play roles with people when we go out. We want to present our best self to this world, and women do that too. And then we get surprised. We get off balance when it says, okay, she's just turned into she got a big old butt down there now. And she gained a ton of weight. And now her true self or her true identity is coming out because she thought she was going to somehow, you were going to accept her true self. And most men won't. And it tells us a lot about the narcissism of men, but most men won't accept it. But I see a lot of men. They go right with that because it's easier not to leave her because you're gonna have to pay child support and the alimony, and those always come back to why are you staying in that relationship? It's cheaper to keep her. And I hear that from a lot of my friends. It's like, man, I can't. They tell me all the time, they give me a pat on my back and they say, Joe, I can't ever imagine what you went through. That was horrifying. Learn from that. Yeah, learn from that. And, but we put on these roles, and men do it too. When you're dating, you presented yourself as, you, you wanted to give their parents the best opinion of you. You cut your hair and you shaved and nowadays I don't give the best opinion. This is my authentic self. I'm not cheating life anymore, and as a mgtow, I'm happy with what I am. So I don't need to give a false impression to the world about what I am. There's no more involved in this. There's nothing more to fool. I'm getting older, and I'm done playing those dramatological games with people because those mess up. And when we talk about finalized fictionalism and dramatology, they're both things that come as there's these psychological sciences of why people do these things, why she wears the makeup, why she puts the heels on, why she hasn't eaten in 2 months, or she nibbles on small carrots and celery to keep her weight down so she can present the best self to you. And then we wonder why they do that. Well, the whole world works like that. Shakespeare and Macbeth, I can't remember, the whole world's a stage. We're all living on this stage, and we're all putting too much effort and putting our front self, this thing that we put out front that's really not true, and it's not reasonable. And then we wonder why we have systems that don't reflect reality. We have systems designed that are absurd. It's the same absurdity that we do to ourselves every single day, and the world's growing now too. We're moving into a postmodern society where a lot of kids are they're getting philosophy at a greater rate, and they're starting to dissect. They're starting to dissect the old, and we see it play out in the arguments of the old guy people, the boomers versus we can see the changes, and I've got to witness all those changes. And I think it was much easier for us boomers. We just accepted the absurdity. That was our, we went with it. And because it was easier to go with the absurdity, go to work, you know, uh, work yourself to death, because that was better than getting nagged at. It's better than it was the only option at that point. But now kids are learning faster, and there's a postmodern world, and I like to get into that because I want to experience some of that freedom as a male and as a mgtow. I've experienced the last 10, 12 years of freedom, of utter freedom, and I can't explain that when I talk to people about it. I say I've lived a life now in MGTOW that most people can't even imagine. And they don't know what I'm talking about. They usually draw it up to like, well, you're so cocky. What's your life have to is better? Well, I've been a MGTOW. I see the absurdity. I've been just hanging with it and just sitting on my MGTOW bench, not really letting the stress get to me. Not really doing those things that everybody says I have to do. Not really concerning myself with the complexities of the world, and that's a much nicer place to live in when you finally see it. At least, you can deal with it in your life, and that's what MGTOW's about: is dealing with it in your life. Not doing that denialism, not saying that these things, because when confronted with that unfriendly truth, you want to stick with it. You want to balk conservative. It's like, no, that's not about MGTOW. MGTOW's a pretty progressive thing. We don't believe in marriage. We don't believe in dating. We don't believe in leaning in with the women. We don't believe that we have those traditional roles. And they haven't had them for years now, and it reflects itself in our society. And we have the baby mama man freeze areas where they're just all pregnant and have multi variety of different colored kids, and one's Asian and one's Hispanic and one's white and one's yellow and one's green. It's like that's cool, they can do that. I much rather live in that world, but they can get some of this semen, and I'll just spread it all around. But men are forced to take on those traditional roles to pay for that. And because our government says they want that to happen for the women, but they want you to pay for it. And they want you to pay for it with a lot of death and suffering and blood. And we're saying, no, I refuse to believe in I refuse to believe in a lot of things. Like I say, I don't believe that men are fathers. That's just a social construct. Her baby. And the judge told me so. I just think that's the coolest thing. I can see through my Pepsi bottle there, my Sprite. I was going to wear a green shirt one day so I can have the detached long sleeve green shirt, so we could just have a detached head and two hands talking to you. I just think it would be wild. But denialism, that's what the topic was about. We see it all over. It's a pseudo skepticism. It's believing in things that aren't real again, and it's myth creation and Christian teachings, and just lean in, step up. There's no such thing as men's rights, and why would you even think about something like that? Abortion, financial abortion for men. They'll deny it, and they'll go right over you like you're less important, like your financial independence and future doesn't matter to them, but it matters greatly to the subject they're talking about, which is the other sex, the first sexism. That matters greatly, but they can't see the second sexism. They're not very liberal-minded people, and the hypocrisy is that they always balk conservative towards that end, and they even the liberals become conservative at the end when confronted with someone that's truly progressive like myself. They won't They won't. There's no male liberation. There's a they'll try to shame you. There's no abortion for men. They'll try to shame you. Man up, be a man. We've seen that. Uh, you be a good father. Be that thing. That you jump right in there, volunteer for that. No, no, that's all in the past. And as long as women don't have to fulfill their and they get a polyandric role and can move from one relationship to the next, have several babies, get all that good money, and man, I want the same thing for myself. I want to be happy. I want to, I want to uh, I want to live my life too. And with mgtow, we've pretty much done that. We've just the word no, and that's different than denialism. That's just no. I don't believe in your method. Ask me what I believe, and I'll just say no. And I'm not going to play your games, and I'm not going to do absurdity. And that, but that was the video for today, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I just felt like coming on and talking about that. But we see that we're going to get confronted with that while you're in mgtow at every step of the way when you go out to look at the other videos, and you're going to see they're going to ask you those questions. Why do you believe this? Why are you so rageful, mgtows? Why do you say these awful things? And they would even say that I'm extremist in my beliefs. And that's just one of the fallacies. They have to cling on to a fallacy to have the denialism, and there's always that but moment. It should be spelled butt, because that's what they really want, and they want to enjoy that. But I'm not a guy that's gonna, hey, women don't act that way anymore. They don't want that. They don't want to, live in those Christian houses, fat and pregnant, washing the floor and doing your dishes and be in your penis pocket at night. Women don't want that. And from the looks of most of these guys around here, I can understand why they don't. But the best way to solve this thing is, move into the postmodern world, and men have to be strong, and we have to have voices. And when they say you're raging, I say, no, I'm just trying to scream over you, because your stupidity is a high brick wall that I have to yell over. And you're putting up a wall of denialism, and I have to yell through that, and I have to make my arguments sound, and I have to make my arguments sharp to get through that wall of denialism that these people put up. And that's why I do it. It's not rage. It's a systematical system that breaks through denialism. And that's all I have to say today, mgtows. And I hope you enjoyed it. Now I'm going on 47 minutes. I just felt like coming on today and talking about something. I didn't even know what I was going to talk about. I just clicked through the Google machine, and the first thing I seen that I that looked interesting, that's what I talked about. So that's mgtow in a nutshell, and we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it until I don't know, until the whole world gets red pilled or however, or has existential angst and asks the same question, and they don't want to live in a world full of absurdity either. It's going to be tough, and there's guys. One of the big things that bothers me about these new kids is they minimalize the extent of the effect that that's going to have on their lives, and that's really kind of funny. That's a total lack of experience in life, and it's sort of it's a youthful ignorance is what I see in them. And I'm like, yeah, you go down that line and you'll become one of the 89%, and then it will all make sense to you. And then you'll think back about arguing with the mgtows, and then we'll be like, yeah, we were right then, we're right now. And nobody wants to be a slave, but your youthful ignorance kind of keeps this thing going. And if we can never just kind of get these what it is to be a mgtow in high schools without the vulgar language, they would say. But we have to do it. Got to get these kids, up to speed before they ruin their lives, and that's our job. That's our job, and it's not just working out and getting some new fancy clothes and working on your bank account so you can go out and find in the waltz. No, it's not. A MGTOW's not about that. And if that's what they think it's about, then I say go try that. I'll still be around here for a couple of years. Go try that, and let me know in about 5 years, because most marriages are going to fail within 5 years, and there's an 89% chance of them failing from 20 years old to 20 to 32. That becomes 89%, and that will happen in a 5 year. So I will get to see it, but they won't never come around and say, hey, MGTOW, you guys were right. They'll come around and say, I have a baby and I love them. I says, you never had a baby. You didn't listen from the first time. Thanks a lot, Joey, Pocket Aces. Thanks a lot, everybody, for showing up. How many people are still left? 18 watching. Bring back the OG flavor. OG flavor. Bring back OG. Yeah, do more. I'm going to try to do more podcasts in the future. I just get so... they wore me down. They really did. Over the years, they wore me down, and I need to get vigorous, just vigorous activity with it. Go another 10 minutes. You want me to go another? Can I go another 10 minutes? It's 51. I'll go an hour, a straight hour. And yeah. So it was nice. It's getting nice now, too. And it's like, man, I want to get out on that bike. And my knee is almost healed. It's almost healed. And I'm right there. I want to get out. I want to start doing things. I was thinking about doing stuff over this long last year. It was a long last year. I really, I couldn't do much. I was stuck. So I just started pedaling that e-bike, and that e-bike saved my life. At least saved me a lot of money from having to get a, a $65,000 to $300,000 operation on my knees. And so I want to get out and I want to pedal. I did a couple hours yesterday and the day before when it went up to 51. As soon as it goes over 50 degrees, the barometric temperature or the barometric pressure makes it much more easy to pedal through the atmosphere. Anything below 50, under the 30, it becomes about 3 times as hard to break through the atmosphere. And you notice it if you're a cyclist, that cyclists go northern states to pedal through the winters so they can get themselves in shape, because when they come back in the summers to the middle areas or where the events are going to happen, it feels like nothing to them. Rocky even did that with where he went training. There's a lot of truth in that. So what is new with you? Hello, Brissy boy. You're late again. I already went my hour. I know. But we talked about denialism today, and we talked about most of the stuff that I always emphasize, with MGTOW and what not to buy into, what to buy into, and what do you do when you run into a tattooed girl? What's that about? Speznak? That's his weakness. Girls with tattoos on their necks. I thought that was so funny when he said that. I was like, really? Girls with tattoos on your neck? On their neck? I guess we all got our thing that we fall for. I fall for French girls. And my buddies, every time he sees a French girl, he says, don't look. He wants to save me from myself. I says, but I already know that hurts. Me and French girls don't. No. had one, tore me up. And, but I guess we all have our thing, but I thought that was funny. He's back. I can't tell if that was a new Spetsnaz or an old Spetsnaz. I guess we'll find out if he makes more stuff. They usually back then he made a the girl with the tats on her neck. I don't know how that works, but yeah, he likes them, and that's okay. That's okay. We all got we all know what our kryptonite is, and just stay away from your kryptonite. Have a good buddy that like, no, Joe, that's your kryptonite. French girls. French girls smoking while sex. That's just the greatest. They're smoking because they're bored. Jesus. Yeah. So skepticism and denial are two different things. Skepticism is a philosophy, and with any philosophy, you have to read and learn about your philosophy if you're going to take on skepticism. And there's no difference between existentialism, nihilism, skepticism, deconstruction, Cartesian deconstruction, or all those things. They're all the same way to say something. You've came to this moment in your life where you question the universe around you. You want to make better observations of naturalism in the world we live in. And you go, I don't believe those jackass Christians, and I don't believe I don't believe those Holocaust denialists, and I don't believe the AIDS denialists, and I don't believe I'll do the research for myself. And then I start putting things back on the table. That's what mgtow is when we come to this gap in our lives where we're left vacant, usually by some event, which I call it, whatever your event that brought you to mgtow was, that left you vacant with questions about the world we live in. I mean, you could put it back together, but you're going to have to do that work. I mean, that's a lot of work too sometimes. I remember, gosh, I've probably read over the last 12 years, I don't even know, probably 30 times more than I've read in the 40 years before that. It's like, and I was always a reader, but this mgtow thing was like you get questions about the universe you live in, and some people say the damnedest things. It's like, wow, you really believe that, don't you? Special unicorn girls that live out in the forest out there, they're wandering around just waiting for you to find them. Jesus. Nah, nothing, no such thing. And they're all pretty much the same. And they want what they want. They want you for a little bit, and then they want to move on. And that's pretty much pretty much the polyandric ways of the female nowadays. And that's pretty much what the government wants. They want the girls to move from one guy to the next, but they want to keep the present former as slaves, and that's what we argue with. You can't have the former as a slave. We don't get slaves. I know it sucks, but we don't get slaves, and leave it to our government to bring back slavery after we had a war and try to pose it as traditionalism. Leave it to our government to do that, because they are a bunch of jackasses, and we can see that in a political sphere now. My God, I try not to listen to that stuff. Jesus, the just lunacy. I was watching it the other day, and I just, oh man, we got a peace with the Taliban, and Trump was like, yes, I made the best peace, and it's the best, and it's the biggest thing that ever happened, and that lasted exactly 11 days. And this morning we started bombing the Taliban again. It's like, come on, guys. We're going to have to get Suboxone for war criminals, Suboxone, they can withdraw from the war. Come on, you guys. I know there's going to be a withdrawal period where you're going to miss killing people and dropping bombs on them. And everybody likes to blow up fireworks. But, it's just like, ooh, we got to pull away from this thing. It's going to be good for our country because then we're going to have a ton of shitload of money to spend on, like, other things like infrastructure and infrastructure and education and stuff like that. And we can just do that if we're not rebuilding Iran and Iraq again and Afghanistan. We could have used that money to rebuild America. Come on, withdraw. So when I see things like that politically, it's like, jackasses. It's like, how do people go on with that stuff? Wow. But in the Bernie Bros, and then we got the Biden, I don't even know what you call it, Uncle Joe, and then we got all that other stuff there with Amy Klobuchar and Warren, and that's been all interesting and everything, but I'd rather not have to listen to it. And I think they're all, hypocritical, and it's two parties, one system. It's two parties, one system. Once you realize that, then none of them really care about you. They all want you to, I mean, hey, talk to a liberal someday. Really, go talk to a liberal and go, hey, how about abortion rights for men? And then see how they balk conservatively on that. And then you realize it's two parties, one system. And I've hit my hour. And the flat. Yeah, the world is flat. I've hit my hour, and I don't want to go on. I don't want to go on any farther. I want to finish my Sprite and get an aspirin and get ready for bed. Yeah, because sleep is when I'm happiest, because the whole world goes away. And if that's what death is, man, come and get me, because I want the whole world to go away. So, like always, thanks a lot for showing up. Thanks a lot for your donations if you gave it. And, thanks a lot for, coming around, because this world's going to depend on guys like you that understand mgtow, because we're moving into it, whether people like it or not. It's a coming, and there's a big wave of mgtow coming through, and whether they grab hold of it now or they take it on later, it ain't gonna matter. It's gonna happen. It's just gonna happen. And but while we're in our infancy here, thanks a lot for coming around, and most of all, thanks a lot for being mgtow. MGTOWs.